Hi everyone, this is the third movie, and on this one we're going to solely talk about the SQL. So we're still on that same database, but we're going to look at structured query language. So on this one I'm going to try and leave this up so we can look at it while we're doing it. So SQL, if I looked at any of these, I could go in and look at the SQL for it, right? So it always begins with a select statement where you select your let's do another one. Fields from tables. Now here we're doing an inner join. So let me just take a minute to talk about what a join is. So by default, Access uses an inner join when you have queries with more than one table that have a relationship. So what that means is if I am looking at customers, so let's create a real quick one here. Let's do a query where we're pulling in customers and transactions, right? So if we're looking at that and I just want to see my customers, when I run this, I am only going to see customers that have a transaction, right? So there's a row for every customer who had a transaction. That is considered an inner join. It only shows in the result if there's a match in both. If I change this to an outer join, in this case it would be an outer left, okay? So I would do all records in the customer table and then show the transactions where they're there, okay? But let's go back. So left column. So include all records from customer and only those records from transaction where the joined fields are equal. Okay, so all customers, regardless of whether they're not they have a transaction, which it looks like. Let me put in a new record here. So, and then let's go back and run this. So there I am down there. I did not have a transaction, right? If I go back and I change this back to the inner join, which is the default, you're not going to see my name because I don't have a match in this table. So having a match is the inner join, and that is the default. To change it in this view, you can double click on the line and then pick the appropriate one. So there might be times where you want to see all customers whether or not they had a transaction, right? But you need information from the transaction. So let's put transaction date on there. So right now you see all their transaction dates and I'm not there. If I go back and I make this a left outer join and run it, you're going to see me, oh, here's a couple, and then you're going to see me, no transaction. These people were not on the last view that we had. Okay, so that's kind of a little bit about the join. So we're doing an inner join, so that's kind of the normal, where the two tables, you have to have something in both tables, right? So I should have showed the SQL. Well, let's go ahead and just create a query in design and close that out and switch over to SQL. And I like to just get rid of that SQL thing there. And so it always begins with the select, and the normal is that you capitalize the reserved words, so that would be things like select, from, group, having, order by, all of those. So what do I want to select? So well, here's my two tables, product type, and then I need to do a calculation, and I have to use these two tables. So let's start off by doing our select, and from table products I want the product type. So this is the field, this is the table that I'm pulling it from. Then the second, if I had another field, I would just put it here. So if we look at this, use the as clause to calculate fields that totals the quantity. So one of the things that you could do is you could put sum in front of this, and you're going to pull table transactions. Let's make sure. Transactions, that's the table, and the field is quantity, right? So we're saying we're going to sum quantity from the table transaction, and then we're going to do the as, because rename it as high sales volume. So we're selecting this field, product type from products, quantity from transaction. We're renaming quantity as high sales volume from, and then here's where we're going to put our tables, table products, inner join, because we want that to be only the things that match. We're joining table products with table transactions, and we're joining it on the field product ID from the products table, and table transactions product ID from the transaction table. Okay, so this is how, these are the two tables, products and transactions. So we're saying we're picking this, we're selecting these fields from these two tables, joined in the traditional manner where they have to have a match. We're joining it, or the field that allows us to link these two tables is product ID in products and product ID in transactions. Okay, and that, if you were looking at it in a normal like design view, this would be the linking. So this would more than likely be the primary key in this table and the foreign key in this table. We're going to group by, and I get that because group the results by product type. Group by table products product type. And it's just a good idea to always indicate the table that you're pulling it from, because like here, product ID is in two tables, so you have to designate. It's just a good habit to get into, to always indicate what table you're pulling the field from. So we're grouping on product type, which is found in the table products, and then we're going to use the having clause, sum table transactions dot quantity greater than or equal to 200, and I'm just going to finish it up and then we'll talk about it. Sum table transactions quantity descending, end it with a semicolon. Okay, so the halving clause, and the halving clause you cannot do in design view. You have to use SQL. You can't have a halving without, you know, your group by. So what we're saying here is we're grouping it by product type, and this is like if you think about while or where, transaction, I got a typo there, transactions, the quantity, the sum of quantity from transactions is greater or equal to 2. Okay, so here's what halving does, is it will not look at an individual record to see if quantity is greater or equal to 200, but rather it can look at the sum of quantities grouped by product type. So that's pretty intense if you think about it. So we're grouping these records by product type. We're summing the quantity by that product type, and now we're saying, hey, I only want those that have a quantity in total of greater or equal to 200. And then the last is just ordering it by the quantity in descending order. So let's run it and see if it works. Eek. I got nothing. All right, let's make sure I don't have a typo here. All right, guys. Hey, I found that there's no mistake here. What the mistake is my transaction table that I downloaded did not have 276 records in it. It had, which is what the answer file has in it. It had a smaller amount. So when I ran it, it didn't have anything. When I copied all those in and I run it, it does. So I think you'll be okay if you have your query set up correctly. So let's go back to the SQL. So the select statement picks the fields from the tables. I'm sorry, it picks the fields. I recommend you always put the table in front of it. This one is a little different because we are renaming it as high sales volume. The from clause gives you the tables that you're using to pull the data. Inner join would be the default. So you would do one table, inner join a second table on, and then you would give the fields that joins. The group by is when you want to do aggregate functions. So we're grouping by product type here. And then the halving is used when you want to limit your results based on a some kind of limitation. In this case, it does it on the group value, not the individual record value. And then the order by just does a sort. So give it a try, and send me any questions that you might have. All right, guys, thanks.